Okay. So again, welcome everyone to this evening's topic tonight. Like I said, if you're new to me, my name is Mandy Chamberlain. I'm an OT and I run OT Flourish and the OT Accelerator. And we do these monthly master classes every single month, talking about everything having to do with being a new grad, working in skilled nursing, home health, geriatrics. But why we decided to talk about this topic is because that is also something that people ask me about, and I have zero idea. Like, I am not the woman, but I am resourceful. And so Joe is here from FitBux to talk about student loans and financial planning and how it works. And if you guys have any questions. And so welcome, Joe. You can take on over. So I'm glad you're here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I am not an OT. I am a finance person. Basically, my background, I've been investing since I was about 12 years old. And went into wealth management, been in mortgages, been in investment banking, basically run the gamut through financial services. Years ago, I started seeing a lot of problems on how all these different things, from financial planning to getting products to tracking plans, doing all these different things, why it's so difficult. And so I started building out a bunch of algorithms to help and to basically build the foundation of an AI, so that way financial planning is really easy through the use of AI. And we initially launched the company back in 2016. But at that point, the only part that we launched with the company was around student loans, because I wanted the overall technology to help young people, because basically we don't have any place to go to get help. And the number one problem was student loans. So I learned more about student loans than I ever wanted to know, and rolled that out. And then when 2020 happened and everything went on forbearance with student loans, we said, let's keep building out the rest of the financial planning technology. And so now we do everything from student loans to full-on financial planning, mortgages, investments, everything basically young professionals need. And right now, the technology, basically you just build a profile, you schedule a call, we help you walk through it all. And about 2 months from now, we're rolling out the first version of the AI to people. But again, we know that you guys want to talk to people too, so that way we offer that. But the question I get all the time is, why health sciences? Like, that's what we primarily work with, is health science students. We actually started in the world of PTs because my wife's a PT. And then naturally, all the OTs that she worked with started asking me for help too. So then we started helping OTs and started going to different OT programs throughout the country, helping with their soon-to-be graduates. So like, I was just at an OT program out in Georgia, I don't know, like 2 weeks ago. And then we started helping SLPs as well. So we started helping basically all rehab therapists. And then we basically just blew up from there, and we help everybody now. But primarily, we've helped, I don't know, something like 18,000 people. A super majority of those are PTs, OTs, and SLPs. So we know the rehab space a little bit more than I thought I ever would. But so if you guys have questions, let me know. And we'll be able to dive deeper into stuff that's specific to you guys.
Let's talk a little bit about student loan, student loan repayment plans and how those kind of work. And people always have questions about, how do we refinance them? Do we not refinance them? Like, you know what I mean? Like, how does that kind of stuff work?
Yeah. So if you guys have gone on to like your loan servicers or studentaid.gov, like just to try to read about repayment plans with your federal loans, it's very confusing, especially when you compare it to private loans. So like, if you guys have private loans with like Sallie Mae or, some of those other companies, it's very easy with those because you're just repaying them. Like, it's very cut and dry. You repay them, you look into refinancing. It's pretty cut and dry. Federal loans, there's a bunch of different options, and they're all different based on when you took out loans and when you didn't take out loans, and it's just a mess. So to simplify it, what we always say is look at it from a financial planning standpoint. And when you look at it from that viewpoint, you only have two options that you're trying to decide what to do. Either you're going to do a payoff strategy and try to pay them off as fast as you can, or you're going to be doing some type of loan forgiveness strategy. Loan forgiveness, if you hear the terms like income-driven repayment plans, like pay as you earn, save, the government classifies those all as loan forgiveness. And so those are the two options you got to really look at. And what you really want to look at from a high level is the differences between the two. So like on a payoff strategy, you're looking at saying, hey, like, can I do things to reduce my required monthly payment to free up more money in my budget? Because that allows you to make prepayments and extra payments and target specific loans. And that allows you to pay off higher interest rate loans and all that type of stuff a lot easier. Maybe you have other debt, maybe you got like credit card debt and you want to pay that off first. You can do that with that type of sequence where you say, hey, I'm going to drop my required payment, pay off targeted debt, and eventually pay off my loans. The reason why that's so important is because with the payoff strategies, Mandy, you brought up like the word refinancing, right? Refinancing only applies if you're paying off your federal student loans. Okay, if you're doing loan forgiveness, you definitely don't want to do anything with refinancing because they don't qualify anymore. You go from a federal loan to a private loan. Okay. And so when you look at refinancing, you're basically looking at replacing your federal loan with a private loan. And the whole point is to get a lower interest rate. Right now, I would say maybe only about 5% of people that we work with, it makes sense to refinance because one, rates are high, but also because of some of the repayment plans are so generous now, it makes no sense to refinance. Okay. But what I want you guys to remember, if you're doing a payoff strategy, look into refinancing. Okay. The other side of that I want you guys to remember with the payoff strategies is, like I said earlier, you're trying to pay them off as fast as you can. That's the whole goal. And you're trying to say, how can I manipulate the monthly payments so I can complement my life and target certain loans? Or maybe you have another goal first, like paying off credit cards or saving for a car or saving for a house or something like that. So basically manipulating monthly payments if you're trying to pay them off and then look into refinancing. Loan forgiveness, okay, that is a whole different beast. And the way the loan forgiveness plans work is they're based as a percentage of your income. Okay, so if your income's like $70,000 a year, your payments will be like $300 a month. Okay, but let's just say you borrowed, let's just say you owe $150,000. The interest that you're charged every month is about $900 a month. And so if your payments are only $300, but your interest is $900, you're not even paying the interest on your loans. And so what happens on these is that your loan balance will either go up or stay flat, depending on which plan you're on. Okay, and that will happen for 20 or 25 years. And then they call them loan forgiveness because let's just say you're on the 20-year plan, whatever you owe is then forgiven. So like if I owed $153,000 still, I don't have to pay it. It's completely forgiven. However, as of right now in the world of finance, when you have a loan forgiven, you have to pay taxes on it. So like if you're on one of these plans and 20 years from now, you have $153,000 forgiven in that tax year, you have to claim that as income and pay taxes on it. Okay. And so I'm going to dive deeper into IDR plans because there's so much confusion around them. But before I do, I mentioned payoff strategies versus loan forgiveness strategies. That's the thing that you got to figure out. The key difference between them is a payoff strategy is you're trying to pay off as fast as you can. The loan forgiveness plans, you're actually trying to pay as little as you can and save for that tax or save for your other goals, right? So like buying a house or something like that. We always say to save a required minimum amount towards that. So like you might owe a $53,000 tax at the end. Like that number sounds large right now, right? Because we're new grads and we don't have any money. But really, you might be able to just save $100 a month and let that earn 5%, and it's going to hit $53,000. So like in my case, I would pay $300 in a monthly payment, save $100, and move on with the rest of my money. Okay. But that's how I would want you to think about that between those two plans. Okay. Now, to deeper dive into the income-driven repayment plans, you really have to keep your eye out for a number of different things. One is your situation. So like when you are like married, how you file your taxes can greatly influence your monthly payment, but also influence your taxes. And then it also influences how you contribute to things like Roth IRAs, because there's tax laws around filing jointly and separately. So you have to take a look at that to make sure how that's going to affect your life. And tax laws change every year. So you literally have to look at that every year. Should I be filing separately or jointly if I'm married? The other big thing, and this is for everyone, this is the biggest problem we see on income-driven repayment plans, is that the government sucks and the loan servicers suck at calculating the monthly payment. Okay, we see this mistake all the time. And when it's for OTs and PTs and SLPs, most of the time they make about a $200 to $500 per month mistake. Okay, so like if they make a $500 mistake, you're supposed to be, for example, being charged $300, and they come back and tell you it's $800. That's like $6,000 a year that they're costing you. And that's just 1 year. Okay, and most of the time people just don't even catch it. They don't even know. Okay, so basically that's the big one. Like I just did one for somebody that I've known for a long time now. He's been in this for 6 years now, and they were adamant that they were charging him the right amount, and they were telling him his payments were $1,800 a month, and he was using our technology over at FitBux, and he's like emailing me. He's like, they're telling me that it's right, but you guys are telling me it's supposed to be $300 a month. It was actually like $313 a month. And I went on to the loan servicer and I caught the error that they were making. They were using his wrong tax return, and he had no idea. And the loan servicers were like, well, the docs we have are correct. Well, yeah, the docs they had were correct, but they didn't have the right docs. So those things, they mess it up constantly. So that's the big thing if you're going on these. What happens if I'm getting married? I got to constantly stay on top of that. And then I also have to make sure that my monthly payments are calculated correctly. That's the big piece on that. Okay.
I have a couple questions before, just real quick. One of the questions is, let's see, can we view income driven one? Let's see, can we review? I signed up for IDR. Okay, so that was one, right? But I'm on the standard payment plan because that is the only one that made sense for me when looking at the IDR. Not sure I've made the right choice. Can you please review the differences? And then the other one was do you pay taxes on all IDR plan balances at the end?
Correct. Yeah, and I'll go through even more details of each one of those. So on the first one, it says, is there any other loan forgiveness options? There are. The most popular one is public service loan forgiveness, PSLF. Okay. Basically, a lot of people think like PSLF is a repayment plan itself. So I get this all the time. Like I want to go on PSLF, but I can't find it on my loan servicer to sign up for it. And it's like, you're not going to, because it's not a repayment plan. Okay. The repayment plan are the income-driven repayment plans. They all have a feature on them that says if you work full-time for a nonprofit, which they now define as 32 hours a week, and you make 120 on-time payments, which is 10 years, then the loans are forgiven after those 10 years and you owe no taxes. So basically you have like regular loan forgiveness, that's 20 or 25 years with a tax. And then you have public service loan forgiveness, that's 10 years, no tax. Okay. So that's the most popular one. By the way, it doesn't have to be at the same nonprofit. It can be at different nonprofits. It doesn't have to be consecutive. You can work for 3 years, take a year off, and then go back. It doesn't even have to be in the world of OT. Like you can go into teaching, you can go work at full-time at Goodwill if you want to, like at the nonprofit, so it qualifies. So that's the most popular one. There are other smaller forgiveness options. Like if you work in rural areas or things like Indian Health Services where they do like $20,000 a year. But those programs are few and far between. You got to really seek them out. I've had some OTs that work in school-based systems qualify as well, but those are kind of tough because sometimes they're contracted positions and you're only working for 9 months. And so you got to be careful on that too. So if you're working for public service loan forgiveness, that's the big thing that you have to be cognizant of. Am I a contractor and am I actually working at the nonprofit? Like, does my paycheck come from them? And am I a full-time employee there? Give you guys an example. I don't know if any of you guys are from California, but out in California, for example, Kaiser is a nonprofit hospital, but the OTs actually work for TPMG, which is a for-profit entity that's contracted to Kaiser. So you don't qualify for PSLF. Okay. Out here in Texas, where I live, my wife works for Baylor Scott and White. They were a nonprofit. They just got bought by a private equity firm. And so like the PAs still work for the nonprofit, so they qualify. My wife's location, the PTs and OTs still work for the nonprofits, but outside the other clinics, they're all for profit now, so they don't qualify for PSLF. So you got to really look at that to make sure that you qualify for PSLF. And if you guys have more questions on that, I can dive deeper into that. The one that I'm on the standard plan, does it make sense? Like, you know, the only time I use the standard repayment plan to repay loans is more of a behavioral type of thing, where it's like, look, I'm paying these off and I just want to make sure that I'm making the payment. Like if I had a smaller payment, I would just spend that money, right? And the reason why I say that is because, I'll give you guys an example. Let's just say I have, let me see something real fast. Might even be able to visually show you guys this. Let me actually show you what I mean real fast. Let me log into a profile so that way you guys can see what I'm about to show you real quick. So that way you'll understand this a little bit better. Sorry about that. We just changed a bunch of stuff on our website and my typical little buttons don't work anymore. Hold on a second. Because I have a bunch of shortcuts saved and they all got erased. All right, let me go into student loans here. All right, so let me share my screen. All right, so this is an example. Like this person has 8 different federal loans. This has 8 different loans, $153,000 in student loan debt. Okay, so if I'm on the standard plan, my required payment is $1,755 a month. So that's my required payment. I have no control of that. So what I mean by that is you'll see each one of these loans has a required payment. Like when you log into your loan servicer, you will not see these individual loan payments. You just see this one big payment. And then they're going to take this money and they throw it across all this on a predetermined basis as a required payment. Okay. Now, if I go on, for example, like the 25-year standard plan, my required payment drops down to $1,055 a month. Okay. And that's really bad if all you do is pay that small payment for 25 years. Don't ever do that. Okay. But it's good because this drops my required payment. So if I still want to pay $1,700 a month, I could do that. But the $700 extra, I can now target towards this higher interest rate loan. So now if I come in here and I say, okay, well, I'm going to make a higher payment, I'm still going to make it. You can see $1,755. I'm still paying that, but $700 is prepayment, which I control. $1,055 is a required payment. I don't control that. You can see here that I end up shaving like a year off my loans and I save $6,000, even though I'm paying exactly the same on my loans. The other thing that this allows you to do is it allows you some flexibility. So maybe you can't afford $1,700 a month right now because you're a new grad and your income hasn't gone up yet. Maybe like in my example, I can afford $1,255 a month. And so I do that. And then as my income goes up, I start increasing how much I'm prepaying over time. So I still pay off the loans in 8 to 10 years. So that allows me to complement my life. The other thing that this allows you to do is maybe you have credit card debt. Like in that case, or car loans. That's the big one we're seeing right now. Car loans at like 10 or 11%. So you might drop your required payment here on your student loans and take this $700 and pay off your credit card debt or your car debt first. Once that's gone, then come back and start making the prepayments on here. So that's what we typically do. Also, some of you guys might want to buy a house. This allows you to qualify off the required payment, meaning if the lower your required payment is on your student loans, the easier it is to qualify for a home. Okay, so this would make it easier to qualify. And one last trick that I'll show you guys with this, why this is so beneficial. My required payment is $1,055 a month. So if I target this loan, this $20,000 loan at 7.9%, and I pay that one off, this balance hits zero. This loan has $155 that's associated with it as a payment. That's gone. So then my required payment would drop down to $900 a month. So as I pay off each one of these loans, my required payment keeps going down and down and down and down, giving my financial plan and my budget more and more flexibility, which is a good thing. The more budget flexibility you have, like the more options you have, the better. Okay. So that is, I just want to give you guys that visual so you can see, why I said, the standard plan, like you can manipulate those federal loans. So we typically don't use the standard plan. But like I mentioned, we do use it because sometimes people come to us and say, look, like if my payment goes from $1,700 a month down to $1,000, I know myself, I'm going to go spend that money, like the $700. So I want to be forced to pay it. Great. You know yourself. Fantastic. Do that. But most of the time we manipulate it. So that way it gives our financial plan a little bit more flexibility. Okay. The other question is, do you pay taxes on all IDR plan balances at the end? Yes. Yes, you do. Okay. Now, I will give you guys one way to save for that tax. The way that I would say about 80% of people that we work with save it this way, and we help them do this, is that they save it through a Roth IRA. And a lot of people don't think about that because when you have retirement accounts, if you take it out before 59 and a half, you're penalized. And most of us are going to be 59 and a half before or when this tax comes due. So people are like, well, I don't want to pay a penalty on the money. But the Roth IRAs have a specialized tax law with them that basically says whatever you contribute to a Roth IRA, you can take out anytime you want to, and you're not penalized. You're only penalized on the gains. So let's just say I put in $5,000 a year into my Roth IRA, and I'm doing that for 20 years. So I have $120,000 that I put in, but the Roth IRA is now worth like $400,000. I could take out my tax. Let's say my tax is 50 grand. I can take out the 50 grand and I'm not penalized. And the rest of it, I can leave for retirement. So you're basically doing two things at the same time. Now, the big reason why we bring that up and we do that oftentimes is because I'm predicting that probably in the next 10 to 15 years, I believe they're going to do away with that tax. Okay. There is rumblings about them doing it already. Some people in Congress have already started talking about it. But the reason why I say 10 to 15 years is because when you look at these income driven repayment plans, they've been around since Bill Clinton. He was the first one that put them out in the 90s. But they really didn't pick up steam until about 2010. That's when a lot of people started using them. So when you look at 20 to 25 years out, that would put it about 10 to 15 years from now. And so when we're talking millions of these coming due, there's going to be a massive problem with people paying taxes on these. I can already guarantee you that. I mean, we did a survey the other day. 88% of people on these plans have no idea there's a tax on them. And there's now something like 9 million people on these plans. So going to have some problems in the future. So I think Congress is going to change that. So if you're saving in a Roth IRA and they change the tax law to say there's no more tax, fantastic. Now you already got your money saving for retirement, or if you want to take the money out and use it for a down payment for a house, fantastic. You got some flexibility in all there. So that is on that. That's a very good question. And I saw the next one, but since we're on the tax, I'll skip to that. How do you calculate it? There is a lot that goes into it. There is your income, there's your marriage status, there's like your children, it all goes into it. We have a tool that we use that factors all that in. Again, I'll show my screen because I already have it up. But like this tool right here, this is $78,000 in income is what I'm assuming. And it just shows you right here what the estimated monthly payments are. Again, we use this a lot to make sure you're not overcharged on that monthly payment. But then you can see here that we estimate the tax for you also. To see what that might be, and then we can back solve and what you would need to save as a minimum amount over time to save for that. Other than that, the reason why we built that is because there wasn't really anything else good out there that actually takes everything else into account. Even if you go on to studentaid.gov, like I hate to say it, but their calculators absolutely suck. There's so many bugs in them that I wouldn't even use studentaid.gov. Like there's a couple other companies out there that have some pretty decent calculators on the internet. Like I would use them before studentaid.gov just because those calculators are not very good. Another question is, if you started 4 years in the private sector, then change to a public sector job and then do the 4 years I already did on IDR count towards the 10 years. or is it 10 years from the start date? It's 10 years from the start date at your nonprofit. So the 4 years you did before, that will count for the 20 or 25 years on normal loan forgiveness. But for the 10 years, it has to be at the nonprofit from when you started there. So then it's essentially, if I start now in a school through DOE, the 4 years I already did on the IDR plan don't matter. In total, I'll have to pay for 14 years. Yes. You'll have to pay for the 14 years. And the same thing is, like, let's just say you're working at the nonprofit and you're there for 5 years, and then you take a year off. Basically, you have 9 years towards regular loan forgiveness, and you have 5 years towards PSLF. If you take a year off and then you go back to work at the nonprofit, both of those just pick up right where you left off at. Okay. And so that's, one way to go about doing that. So, but good question. So that's student loan payoff, IDR plans. Like, I can show you guys some refinance stuff too if you want me to. But I'll pause there, Mandy, to see if you have any questions and all that, because I know I just threw up on all those different areas of payoff versus loan forgiveness and everything. So see what questions you guys have.
Yeah. Does anybody have any other types of specific questions? I'm kind of interested in like how does, like, using something like FitBux, how does like the student loan, you talk about like saving for a house or doing that. Is that what FitBux does? Can it help with all those things, or is it?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Or how does that, like, what are the services? Because I mean, my big thing is always like, it's not just student loans, right? Like it's a whole plan of like you said, paying off credit cards, paying off cars, if you have something like that. If you want to save for a house, you want to save, you know what I mean? Like, how does this whole thing kind of fit together?
Yeah, and that's actually when I was talking about like algorithms and stuff that I was doing, like, that's the big part. Is one of the biggest problems people have in finance is they're like, oh, I want to buy a house now. And they look at the house in isolation. I have a car loan, I need to pay that. They look at that in isolation. I need to save for retirement. They look at that in isolation. It actually ends up hurting you a lot, because you might do something here that really costs you a lot on these other things. And so I'll give you guys an example, like what I'm showing with on the screen right now. This is like a pre-built demo account that we have, but you'll see in here that it goes through and you can add in goals and everything, like getting married, buying homes, like having children, all that type of stuff. And we have a financial planning system where we talk about putting money in your day-to-day category, money for future self, and risk management. And so it will literally go through, you put in all your expenses, you put in money for future self, and then you come in and you go into risk management, which is like life insurance and health insurance and that type of stuff, disability, dental, all that. And then you can simulate it, and you can build multiple plans, and you can see what happens over time. So for example, like I'll show you guys, because I have two already built in here. One is just strictly looking at paying off loans versus going on the new save plan. And so if I want to compare what happens over time with those two plans, in this specific example, I'm actually better off paying off my loans and then saving afterwards, because it gives me about $400,000 more versus going on to save and trying to save money because of what happens with the tax and whatnot. But that's the long term. So then, like, we can look at this in your scenario and say, is this number out here, is it a big difference or not? Sometimes it's a big difference. Sometimes it's not. But you might look at this and say, hey, look, I'm single. I want to pay off my loans. Basically, I can have my loans paid off in 10 years and have $219,000 in savings and retirement. Woohoo! That's what I'm doing. You might turn around and be like, well, look, I'm married, or I'm getting married. We want to have children. Our actual priority is to buy a house. You might come in here and say, look, within 5 years, we can have $197,000 saved. I'd rather do that and give up, $300,000 or $400,000 in the long run. But now you can see and compare and contrast how to maximize basically what to do. And so we have this tool available for everybody. This version of it that's out right now, we encourage people to build their profile, and before going in to actually build these plans yourself, all you have to do is come up here and click schedule a call and schedule like an hour-long phone call with one of our experts, and they'll walk you through everything and actually help you build the entire thing. And then once you say, this is the one I want to do, you can click implement, and then it will save onto your dashboard, and you can actually track your financial plan in real time to make sure that you're doing everything correctly. And anytime you want to schedule a call or email us, it's the same expert that you talk to every single time. Okay. And I'm going to touch on, one of the keys of financial planning right now. And then I'll bring up some stuff too about the new SAVE program. Cause I while we're talking, I actually just got DM'd about the new SAVE program and my opinion on it. And so I'm sure that you guys might have that same question. Before I get into that though, the financial planning stuff that I wanted to show you is these three categories right here: day-to-day money, money for future self, and risk management. The reason why those are so important, especially for financial planning, is because this category here, money for future goals, that's the most important thing you can do with your finances long-term. And what I mean by that is your only long-term goal is to increase how much money is going to this category over time. And so you can see like this person right here has almost $2,400 a month going towards this category. Whenever you get a pay raise or anything like that, or at once a year, maybe, or every 6 months, your goal is to increase this. So like this person next year might want to do like 2,500 and then 2,600. And the reason why that's so important, I'll give you guys an example mathematically why that's so important, is that if you say compounding interest, right? That's what everybody talks about all the time, compounding interest. If you invested $100 a month and you did that for 40 years and you earned 8%, which is a really good rate of return, which is most people average over 40 years. Okay. That only equates to $349,000 over 40 years. Like you're not going to retire off of $349,000. Okay. Now, if you make one tweak to that, where you said, look, this year I'm going to do 100 a month. Next year I'm going to do 125 a month. The next year I'm going to do 150 a month. That number, instead of being 349,000, is 1.24 million. And so our technology, when I say once you save your plan and you implement it and you're on this dashboard, that's one of the things we're tracking is, are you increasing how much you're doing to that category over time? So that way you don't have lifestyle creep and all these different things coming into your life. Okay. And then from there, we have short-term goals. And what we say is you want to maximize one short-term goal at a time. So if your goal is paying off credit cards, all your extra money, that's where it's going. Like if your goal is paying off the student loans, that's where your extra money is going. Boom, that's it. You're not trying to do 10 different things at the same time. And that helps you reduce the stress when you just look at those two goals. Long-term is increasing money to future self. Short-term is one goal at a time. Everything else, you just filter out the noise and you don't have to worry about it anymore. It is fantastic. Like when I figured that out, these stuff, by the way, I said the algorithms for our company. Like, to be honest, I never built these algorithms for like thinking I was going to launch a company. I was doing this research with these algorithms and all the behavioral stuff for me initially. And when I figured this stuff out, it was like, holy crap. And my finances just started taking off and my life was so much simpler. And then I started using it with my friends and same results. And then my wife's colleagues started coming to me and they're like, well, you should turn this into a technology. I'm like, yeah, I could turn it into AI if I want to. Like, let's start doing it. So I'm huge on that. So yeah, good questions. And then SAVE, I mentioned I'd bring up SAVE. SAVE is a new program for about, I would say probably 70 to 80% of people that we work with that are graduate students. So you have your master's in OT or your OTD, either one. Because of the dynamics of the way those plans work, most of you would actually be better off going on to pay as you earn or an income-based repayment plan, IBR. And that's essential because if you're already in repayment, you can't go on to pay as you earn after July 1st. Like that option is gone. And so you got to make that decision now. And like I said, for 80% of OTs that we work with, pay as you earn is the better option than SAVE, because SAVE is 25 years and pay as you earn is only 20 years. So those extra 5 years are massive difference in terms of financial projections. Where SAVE does make a lot of sense is for people on public service loan forgiveness. Like those numbers flip flop. Like 90% of people that are on public service loan forgiveness would be better off on SAVE. Now, bigger picture, SAVE might not be around in the next 6 months, like on the next 7 months. We'll see. Basically, if President Biden wins re-election, I think SAVE it is going to be there, and it might even be more generous than what it is now. If President Trump wins, it's gone. I can pretty much guarantee you that. Like they're going to come in and probably do something with their own plans. The reason why it's so dicey is that IDR, what's actually called IBR, income-based repayment, that was pushed through Congress. And so presidents can't change that. So if you're on IBR, you're on it. Like, you'll be grandfathered in. Pay as you earn was done by executive action by President Obama. And this new SAVE program was done by executive action by President Biden, which means they can be undone by any president in the future. And they don't have to grandfather anybody in. And so that's where they kind of get scary. Will that actually happen, where a president wouldn't grandfather anybody in? There'd be so much backlash that I don't think that it would happen. But with a president that's not looking for re-election, you never know. And again, if President Trump gets in, he's not going for re-election again. So I could see him being like, nah, we're getting rid of this thing. So we'll see where it all lands. We should have hopefully some answers to that in the next 6 to 7 months. So the other question we got is, does your company offer in-person financial advice if needed, or is this online when one builds their own plan? Not in person, face to face, unless you're here in Texas, like, or sometimes when I travel to different schools, I have people like want to meet up. Like, I don't mind doing that. But most of our stuff is either over the phone, or we also offer Zoom meetings. So it is face to face in that nature. It's just not you by yourself. Like I don't believe in that, just because I know that you guys got questions, and this is really big, like, decisions. So, I'm really excited about the AI coming out. But I still stress to people, reach out and make sure that you're comfortable with everything and that you have your questions answered. Because at the end of the day, I tell people this all the time. I could tell you the most efficient thing to do in the world. If you're not comfortable with it, you're not going to do it. So why? And with our AI that's coming out in about 2 months, the reason why I'm so excited about it is because we actually factor in behavior analytics into it. And so we're trying to make those adjustments into your financial plan that you will actually do. And so, like, if you guys sign up and you build your profile, you'll see, like, we're asking questions like, do you run marathons and all that type of stuff, like, because we're using that data to analyze behavior. So that's why we ask those questions, if you guys see those when you're signing up. So, but yeah, good questions. Mandy, I'll see if you have any other questions, if you want me to dive deeper into the planning piece or the student loan stuff, and go from there.
Yeah. Does anybody else have anything? You can write it in there. But I think the behavior part is kind of really interesting, because we aren't machines. You know what I mean? And like being able to kind of like see what those patterns are.
Mm-hmm.
And so how does that, like, how do those types of questions help determine some of that? Do you know what I mean? Like, why does it matter if you run a marathon? Is it because you're a committed person and you're going to show up and do the things? Or like, how does that change a plan, I guess?
Discipline. So that's the big one on, like, running marathons. So,
yeah, just stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll give you an example. Like,
yeah.
The discipline side of things of actually following through on a plan is so massive. Like, you can't come out. So, like, the trick that I showed you guys earlier, where we drop the required payment, okay, and then we target prepayments. I talked to you guys about that because you're OTs. Okay. OTs, like, you guys have discipline because you're going through school. You guys have good grades. I know that about the typical OT. That is why I bring that up with you guys. When I talk to undergrads, like, I was just at Texas State yesterday talking to 600 undergrads. I don't even bring it up because I don't know anything else about them. And most undergrads are not going to show that discipline yet. And so that's how we start adjusting conversations, as well as stuff in the plans and the results that we build out in the plans, is like, can you go more complicated with this or not? And because to me, it's not about necessarily being the most efficient thing ever. Like, I want this stuff. I want you not to have to think about money whatsoever. I joke around all the time when I give live presentations, like, to students, and I'll say this to you guys, think back before you started, like, OT school, before that. Okay. Why did you get into being an OT? Why did you want to do it? Why? I'm going to guess you wanted to help people, right? Like, you're going to healthcare, OT. Like, if you don't want to help people, you're probably not going to go that route. Okay. Now, what you didn't say was I can't wait to go to OT school because I need a challenge in my life. And when I'm done, I can't wait to have student loans because I just need a financial challenge. Right? And nobody says that. But yet I hear from OTs almost on a daily basis where I'm like, hey, what type of setting did you go into? And they'll tell me, and I'm like, well, what do you like about that setting? They're like, oh, I hate it. I actually would have rather gone into this other setting, but I didn't because it pays me more. I'm like, why is that important? They're like, I have student loans to repay. Well, now student loans are dictating your life. You're going to burn out. You're going to have stress. And even if you go to a higher paying job, you don't have answers. You don't have anything organized in your head. You're just going to stress out and burn out. And I see that all the time. In fact, the APTA for physical therapists just reached out to me because they just did a survey and 10% of the PT workforce is planning on leaving this year because of burnout. Number one reason, financials. Okay. And I know this, like from the people that I've talked to in the OT industries, there's a similar research paper, but that hasn't been publicized because they're fearing the backlash, but they showed it to me. Those numbers are almost exactly the same. And that's what I told the APTA. I'm like, it doesn't matter if you're looking at PTs. This is just people in general, just across the board with everything that's going on with home prices and student loans and inflation. I mean, cars. I mean, the average like monthly payment on a car right now is $550 a month at an interest rate of 10%. That's the average right now that's going out. And it's like, how do you simplify this stuff so that way you're not stressed about it? And so that's where the discipline comes in, is how do we adjust that plan so that way it's customized to you, so that way you don't have to stress about it, and then you can go and be an OT, and that's why you're there, right? Like, you're not there to stress about money. So that's the whole game plan. It's working so far. But that's why we ask those questions.
That's super interesting. So like with the FitBux, you put your information in, you set up this plan, you do this whole thing. And it's automatic? Like it just automatically does it all for you once you have the plan, or how does it mean?
So right now, the version that's out there right now, like if you guys come in here and it says build my plan, do not use this one that says beta. This was an old one that we were using. We were testing stuff on there. Use the one that says manually. And this is the one that you guys can build it yourself. But again, I highly recommend you scheduling a call, and we'll help you guys go through it to make sure you're putting all the right information in about your retirement packages and everything. Because like I said, we factor in everything. So we want to make sure that it's perfect in there. Not only that, but our experts that you talk to, they know the technology inside and out. So we can literally build a plan for you in like 3 or 4 minutes. We could build multiple plans in like 30 seconds, and help you do it. So it's faster versus trying to do the whole thing yourself. And then when you say, I want to implement my plan, then you can track it, and you can either track it manually where you put in your own information and you're just putting in your income every month and your expenses and whatnot, just so you can see where your money's going. Or you can also link your accounts. Not every company links. Some companies that link, they suck, so they break all the time. So it's just a personal preference. We give you guys both options to track it over time. Sometimes people go in, they track it every day, every week. I'm personally not like that. Some people want to track it like once a month or once a quarter. Some people don't track it at all. They come in, they fill it out and update their profile once a year and then schedule a call and say, hey, am I on track? Right. So it just depends on how you want to set that up. Right now, the site that's up there is not mobile friendly. In about a month or 2 from now, when we roll out the AI, we're also rolling out a mobile friendly version of it. It's not an actual app, because our studies are like, people just they're so app bombarded with everything that they didn't want another app. They rather just have a website that they can log into that's mobile friendly. So that's what we're rolling out, coming out soon. We already have, like, when you guys build a profile, that's mobile friendly, but when you hit the dashboard, it's desktop. And again, the reason why we did that is because most people, when they make a big financial decision, 70% are still telling us that they want it on desktop, and then they want to track it on their phone. So that's why we're building the mobile friendly version of it right now, is to hit both. I can't wait for it. It's something that I've been looking at for like a year. So in my mind, I'm like, it's already there. And then I realized that it's not. And it's like, shit, like, hurry up, guys. So it will be there.
That's great. Does anybody else have any other questions, about student loans or anything else? I mean, I know that Joe can talk about any of this forever. So if you have anything specific, be sure to drop it in or raise your hand or put it in the chat. But yeah, I think these are the things that, like you said, it's like once you get the plan set up, I think that's the thing. It's like, I think for me, it was always like the big challenge. It just feels so overwhelming, right? Because like you're right. I totally used to be like that, where I would silo everything, right? And how it works together, but like, or silo it and not how it works together. But once you kind of start shifting that mindset of like how one can feed the other, or one can benefit the other, or you should pay off this one first, you know what I mean? And once you get the plan in like established and you can kind of let it do its thing, I don't know, I nerd out a little bit on it too. Like I think it's kind of fun because because you're just like, it's actually working, and like it takes a lot of stress off, I think.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, you're talking about stress off, like one of the reasons why that we asked the whole discipline part of it too, is because we are actually calculating for the AI to work this thing called human capital, which is basically a projection of your income and the risk to that income, but it has a value today. And so one of the things that we show you on some of the sub pages on our site is that value. We call it your intangible human capital value. And the reason why that's so important is because a lot of us graduate and we might have like 200 grand in student loan debt. So you go onto some of these sites that do like tracking, like personal capital and stuff. And they're like, you have negative $200,000 in net wealth. And it's like, that's depressing as hell. Like just from a mental standpoint, it's like, and then you're like, well, I've been doing this for a year and my net wealth went from negative 200,000 to negative 190,000. And it's like that still sucks. Like, and so human capital is our biggest asset when you're younger. So like your human capital might be worth like $800,000. And so like on our site, we show you that like your human capital is worth like 800 grand. If your student loans are 200 grand and your other costs and whatnot, maybe like another 100 grand, like your actual net wealth is like $500,000, like positive. Now your job is to take that intangible money and allocate it over to your financial capital over time as you're realizing your income. How do you do that? What's the best way to do that? But it's just from a mental standpoint, like I want something positive. Like I just busted my ass for all these years in school. Like now you're telling me that I have like that's depressing. And that's why, like from a mental standpoint, this is like I like those things, like those mental wins. So that's why I like that. Also, funny thing, I just got a DM from somebody on the call asking if it's the same Joe Ranke that runs the OT Facebook group. Yes, it is. Like I said, I am not an OT, and I always get asked, like, why do I run that group? I actually don't do much of it anymore. My wife does most of it. I got involved because I know how to grow Facebook groups. And an OT came to me and asked me like 7 years ago if I could help him start a new grad and student OT group. I said, yeah, absolutely. I would love to do it as long as you're doing it, because those groups, like the number of messages and stuff and spam stuff that we get, I told him, I was like, I'm not going to try to update and upkeep this. And he's like, I'll do it. So he did it for like a year with me, and then he realized what I had told him, and then he quit and dropped off of Facebook. And so now it's like, great. Now I've run this OT group. So yes, but I run that group. Like I said, my wife does most of the stuff now. I'm hardly ever on it, but yeah, I just got that DM. I thought it was funny. So
that is funny. Well, it's already 6:52, so we can kind of wrap that up. And like I said, if anybody has anything else, drop it in. I put in the link, my referral link for FitBux. You can check out the website and join. And like, you can join it and just set up a profile if you're not ready to join, right? Isn't that how it is? Like,
so yeah, right now we just rolled out like a 14-day trial. And with that 14-day trial, you can schedule calls with us. Like, and people are like, well, am I guaranteed to get somebody on the phone? Yeah, we have spots open. So you can come on, build everything. If you like it, you keep it. If not, you just close it and that's it. But you can still get answers for free. So if you guys need help with all that, let us know. And like we do all of it too. So like if you're going to do student loan refinancing, we'll help you shop. Like if you need credit card refinancing, we help you do that. If you want help opening up Roth IRAs, we can open up Roth IRAs through our platform. So basically at the end of the day, what we're trying to create is a one-stop shop for everything. So building your financial plan, getting the products you need to actually implement that plan, and then actually tracking it all in one place. So for example, if you move to Texas and your wife totaled your car, and you need a new one, you can update your financial plan really quickly, figure out which loan you need really quickly, and then turn around and just start tracking it again and have everything done in 5 minutes. And by the way, yes, that's a true story.
I was just gonna ask. I was like, come on, no, that's
She
funny.
totaled actually her brother totaled one of our cars right before we moved from San Jose, and then she totaled the other car right after we got here. So yeah, fun stuff.
See, I appreciate it. Every time I think about my loans, I feel sick. I've been out of school for a year, working in the field since December, and I've watched my loans grow due to the interest rates. Thank you so much for your advice. Yeah, that's the thing, right? I mean, I hate to be, but it's part of being an OT. Like, you know what I mean? Because like I said, some people were like, "Why are you doing this?" But I'm like, it's actually part of just like being an OT. All those student loans and stressful. I was also going to say, I shared the link for FitBux. And I'm an affiliate with Joe, but like we also have a promo code for 25% off monthly. I don't know, subscription kind of thing. So I will put that in there. It's just OT Flourish as well. If people are interested in that, you can use that to give a little discount too. But it, you know, what you pay and what you get out of it, I mean, there's no question really.
Yeah. You know, the big thing is, you brought it up earlier, is if you have a plan set up, the stress level drops dramatically. And if you can get correct answers, like, and the reason why I say that, like, I wish I had this research report already to be published, because like last year, we haven't done this with OTs. We might be doing it with the first OT school in a couple of weeks. But last year, a number of PT programs asked us to put together curriculum for their universities, for their programs. And so we did. So like right now, we're in like 30 different PT programs right now. And the one thing that they asked us, like, I'll never forget, one of the schools, they were like, well, how do we know that this helps, you know, with them with stress and everything else? And I told them, I said, well, in the last 3 years, we've had 120 of your students come to us after. Go put a poll with them and see how stressed out they feel about student loans. And the average from the school was over $200,000 in student loan debt. Okay, it's a private school and massive student loan debt. They came back with that poll, and they're just like, yeah, they don't, like, they all said they have a game plan. The big number doesn't daunt them because they know what they're doing with it and what they have to save. I say, good. Now go on, because the DPTs have a Facebook group as well. That's really large. I said, now go on to that DPT group and do a general survey about how people feel about their student loans and how stressed they are. And it's night and day, right? So yeah, it's like, it's that just having that answer, like what you're supposed to be doing, all of a sudden that big number is not so daunting, because you know what you're doing with it. You know where that light at the end of the tunnel is, and you know how to make it not be so restrictive on your life.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, any other, I'm sure there's a billion questions, but it's like, does anybody have any other pressing questions? I'll also, if you guys are here tonight and you did not actually sign up through the links, or let me put that in there, because then you can make sure that you're signed up, so that when I send the replay and the transcript and all the extra links and things like that, that you get that. So some of you may not have signed up and just kind of showed up, which is totally fine. Let me see if I can find my link now. But that is it. I will be sending out, like I said, all the replays and the transcripts and all the information. Check out the link. I have it linked here and it pinned at the top of the chat box for FitBux, and you can kind of dig around, and there's lots of great resources and, you know, blog posts and different things like that as well. Do you have anything else you want to add, Joe, before we kind of wrap up here? Let me find this link while you're wrapping up, I guess.
No, just looking forward to, you know, helping all you guys. You know, any questions you guys have, you know, let us know. All this stuff is always moving, and, you know, it just sucks because, you know, we started with student loans because that was the biggest problem that young professionals had back, when we started 8 years ago. And that problem's still there, but it sucks because now we got other problems too, like inflation and home prices and all that other crap that's going on right now. So, that's why we're there, is to try to help you guys. So I'm looking forward to it.
Let's see here. And so I'm going to add the link. If you did not sign up tonight, usually like we don't have to, if you're an OT Accelerator member, you don't have to sign up for these, but we're doing it this way so we can keep track and get you the replays if you need. So I'll give you that. And thank you so much for joining us tonight and answering questions. And thanks so much, Joe, for doing this with us. It's awesome.
Yeah.
So,
thanks for having me. It's fun.
Yes.
If you guys are going to do something on like investments or home buying or anything like that, let me know. I got a good one on home buying. Like that's like the next question that a lot of people start asking is about
yeah,
and anything else. So
I know, and
it
all like fits together, and it's like, oh my gosh. I mean, I didn't know anything. I learned a lot of it on my own. You know what I mean? And that's what a lot of people I think do, right? And just like,
yeah, well, it's crazy because I just got asked to talk at a real estate conference with brokers and real estate agents. And I started talking about mortgage points, and I asked them to raise their hands and how many actually know what they were, and like less than 5% of the people in the audience raised their hands.
Well, it's not what you learn all day, every day, Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Perfect.